Yes, we've got a little video here that is from the client and really represents their ambitions for the project, both in terms of briefing, the context of what they do, program, and their reception of the project. So it's a couple of minutes, so this should be a good way of leading into it.
The greatest hunters of the Australian skies are known as raptors, or birds of prey. You might know them as eagles, falcons, hawks and owls. Raptors all have common features: a hooked beak, strong feet with sharp talons, keen eyesight and a carnivorous diet. Raptors hunt to survive. Their lives depend on it. To be a successful hunter, they also need optimal fitness and endurance. But if the raptor is hurt, injured or ill, Healesville Sanctuary's Wildlife Hospital is where many land for expert help and care. Our veterinary team treat raptors for all issues. Whether it's a broken wing, an injury sustained being caught in a barbed wire fence, being hit by a car, or being orphaned. But that's just the beginning of the story. Some injuries can take weeks or months to heal. Fitness numbers and rehabilitation becomes one of the most critical steps in a raptor's recovery. The new Raptor Rehabilitation Centre is designed and purpose-built for this rehabilitation journey. The circular design of the building provides birds with the opportunity for continuous flight, which builds fitness and endurance. Along with that, raptors can navigate changes of direction, gain height, land and take off. A hands-off approach with as little human interaction as possible ensures that the wildness of these birds is preserved. The day of release is the ultimate milestone in the journey of raptors' recovery. That's what Healesville Sanctuary's Raptor Rehabilitation Centre is all about. Second chances achieved veterinary excellence in this spectacular one-of-a-kind centre leading the world in raptor care and rehabilitation.
To our slide. So the project is obviously at Healesville Sanctuary, which is just south of the town of Healesville, in Badgers Creek, in that sort of wider Yarra Valley landscape. So regionally located, but reasonably close to Melbourne, on Wurundjeri country, and sits, you can see it here, sits in the shadow of Mount Riddle. And early engagement with Mount Indy on site got us aware of the importance of Mount Riddle and Bundle, and a really strong connection in terms of birds to the whole project, really. It is essentially a medical facility for non-humans. Yeah. So the immediate context of the project is both interesting from a zoological point of view, a regional point of view, and an architectural point of view. So the new flyway here, which is this structure here, which is mainly outdoor space, sits immediately adjacent to 2005 Minifie Nixon project, the Animal Wildlife Hospital, which is still functioning, and indeed our building is a direct extension of the program of this building. So the hospital stuff that we saw in the video happens in here. It's recently been refurbished. And we have done a bit of sort of contemporary heritage work in relation to the front of this building. Other notable buildings in the context, Jeffrey Burgess's 1994 Platypus project, also Walker and Cassandra Fay's Platypussery here as well. Landscape from 20 years ago by Rush Wright, and landscape around our project by Sophie and Schored Projects. So the building is, as you can see here, got a reasonably transparent top and has very solid, although permeable sides. It is effectively a natural tunnel, which is essential to the model of rehabilitation that this project seeks to innovate in. There is no other facility, flyway facility like this in Australia up until this point. There are other large bird circuit flyways, there's one in New South Wales, but it's a fully meshed model. You can see to the side a linear flight tunnel, that's the more traditional model. But as I saw in the video, you want to get some speed up and genuine rehabilitation. The birds need to fly in circuits. This is the floor plan. The building is essentially a big veranda of actually what is a very small building in the middle, a series of holding rooms around the perimeter, around the centre that are covered external spaces as well, and then the flyway itself, which is 6 metres wide, 6 metres high. You can see it here through section. It sits near the bank of the Corora Creek, which floods, we're using flood modelling. The building essentially shares a floor level with the hospital building here. You can see it here. It's essentially an exoskeleton, so the steel-framed structure that sits visibly from the outside, and the smooth baked timber in skin to reduce the amount of protrusions for birds. There is the 2005 hospital building. And there went to some effort to try and re-expose and clean up landscape in front of this, expose this nice weird knuckle as part of the project. This is the structure of the building, which as mentioned is primarily steel and then clad out in timber, spotted gum battens sitting on the inside face. The project is the donut, and this was taken at the opening event. The Sanctuary very keen to play up on this idea of the donut. These are Rhiannon Slatter's finished photographs, so the building opens up with a couple of different entry points into the flyway itself. This is an airlock that takes you into the main flyway. There's some external lighting elements. This is the door into the small building proper. You get a sense of the flyway here, solid sides and mesh and netted top. And it's about 100 metres around the perimeter at the outside edge. There's a series of perches that are movable and a series of large curtains that help divide the space up as required. This is one of the holding rooms. There are also external spaces, so birds are often in here and then released into the flyway. This is a couple of photos from the first flight. The project worked. To a large extent, it was a $2.8 million experiment as to whether the birds would use it, and they are. This is the little back of house. This is the building in the middle of it. This is essentially a lab condition, a couple of intensive care rooms, and this is the building you're seeing. From the public side of the park, the site really sits on the threshold of the public areas of the sanctuary and the back of house, and the project in that way is a kind of threshold between the two ends of the park. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Stewie, how do they get the birds to fly? How do they actually get that, out of curiosity? How do they get them to?
So they take them in there. There's two ways at least. So they get them on their equipment handlers, and then they encourage them to fly after they've had surgery or whatever procedure they've had. And it's baby steps at the start, and they might just fly from one handler to another inside the flyway, or one perch to another. And once they get more confident, they release them from the holding rooms and then make their own way, and then they'll just fly at over 100 kilometres an hour in circles.
Yeah. Right.
And then once they're able to do that, they can fly a certain speed and distance and a certain level of straightness. The straights are useful for judging that they've returned to their normal flight pattern. They can assess it, and then once they've done that, they can go. But it's an incremental process, and they come out of the hospital, they come here, then they go back to the hospital, and each of the process.
I'm assuming the singular kind of service internally is certainly, as soon as you have a window to that from outside, that confuses the birds.
It has to be distraction-free. So.
Right. For kind of safety.
Well, it's the inherent intention of the project is a natural environment, but also highly protected.
Yeah.
And so timber, obviously, to create the natural environment, and there's a 20 millimetre gap between the boards. And in fact, on the public-facing side, which is this side here to the left, it's actually an interlayer between two sets of boards of acrylic to provide an acoustic barrier to noisy children like in the park.
Yeah.
Because what the sanctuary wanted was a facility, really, that was where the birds can be completely separated out from the public. It was actually funded by Tourism League, and so there is a public element to it. And so it has that presence. But that is the inherent intention of how you make something that is both secure and natural, but also free from distractions from the side. Distractions from above are okay. So they get that sense that they're outside. But the tunnel model is really unique to this centre and one in Canada. This is loosely based on.
Can I just ask, was that the circular model of the flyway, was that something that was in there previously?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So they did, we were meeting with the Canadians. They had developed, the Canadians developed this project about 10 years ago, and then they were they'd seen it and were interested in replicating that. It's smaller, this is bigger. But yeah, that was always, they have linear fly tunnels, but they're limited because you can't get that build up of speed. So I describe it as a cross between an Avery and a particle accelerator.
No.